amazing. She's Canadian. And so she's actually an immigrant to Iceland, which makes her experience extremely good. Are you ready? All right. So I'll stop talking about Eliza Reed, although thank you very much, Eliza. It was a wonderful event. Thank you so much for coming this afternoon, Joanne Fluke. What a pleasure to see you again.
Oh, it's good to see you, Barbara.
And your real face.
And my real face, yes. I want everyone to see. I do have a mask. But I'm not wearing it right now.
Well, you can choose to put it on for the signing if you wish.
Oh, yeah, I suppose that's better.
So we're here talking about, excuse me, the caramel pecan roll murder. I think this is really cool to look at this cover. Doesn't it make you hungry?
Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. It was it's neat. Oh, you gotta try those caramel pecan rolls because they are so easy. It's a cheat recipe. I gotta tell you that right now. Yeah, it is a cheat because
made with Pillsbury.
Yes,
I read the recipe.
Thank goodness. That's a Minnesota company, so it's okay. Yeah. No, we. My son and I. My mother used to work at a drugstore called Dan Marsh Drugs. And they had a coffee shop that was more like a restaurant. I mean, it was open like from 8 o'clock in the morning until like 10 o'clock at night. So it was really, they had a full menu. And she used to work there when she was in her 70s. And her title was Salad Girl. Which she thought that was hysterically funny. She loved their, they call them caramel pecan rolls. She loved those, and so did I. And I said, Mom, can you possibly get the recipe? She said, I know the lady that makes those. I'm going to ask her. Well, she did ask. And the lady said, oh, I asked her, I would give that to you if I could, but when we started work, we had to swear that we would give out this recipe. And if I do, they will fire me. And I need this job. And my mother said, hey, that's okay. That's okay. You know, Joanne and I'll have to live without it. And the lady said, well, can you come in at 6 in the morning? And my mother said, sure. And the lady said, well, see, I make them at 6 in the morning. I can't give you the recipe, but you can watch me make them. But I can't give you the measurements. You can't stand too close, but we'll put you on a stool over here and you can see what I do. And my mother learned the ingredients. She does not know or never knew the proportions, but it was brown sugar and it was salted butter and it was heavy cream. And that was the caramel sauce. And then pecans, of course. And so my son and I decided we were going to resurrect this recipe. Oh, you have no idea how many pans we made till we got them right. And this is the cheat recipe. They are so easy. You can make them in, well, I think with standing time, probably, less than an hour. So if you're having a party, or overnight guests, you can dab a little flour on your nose and, wear an apron and say, oh, I made caramel pecan rolls for you this morning. Everybody will go, you did? And then they'll taste them and go, oh my gosh. So there you are, you have it.
And there is a recipe for butterscotch sauce, a stovetop recipe, which has, you'll be happy to know, only 3 ingredients. Very easy to do. And I'm not going to spoil the surprise of how to make the caramel pecan rolls, but you'll enjoy that. So I went through my advanced reading copy. This is the copy that I get. This is not the actual book, but it's an early reading copy where they put useful things on it to help booksellers sell books. I ignore all that. I just read the book. But other lesser booksellers actually use this stuff. Well, sorry, I just, there has to be a reason why they do it, and I'm assuming they think that we can't figure it out for ourselves. And they put on reviews and other things. But sometimes what happens is when I get this, it doesn't look like the real book because they haven't done the artwork enough. So I come down to the store having read this, and I'm amazed. I say, oh, look, I say, that's what this book looks like. But fortunately, in Joanne's case, her publisher always puts out an advanced reading copy that does look like the book. So what I did was I went through and I turned over some little page things about interesting stuff, because we can't really talk about the plot all that much or we'll completely ruin the book for you. And we can only talk about food for so long, right? Well, no, we can talk about food all. Anyway, there's a number of really interesting things that are flow into this story, which is about a fishing tournament primarily in Lake Eden. And I think you must have done some, I never thought of you as a serious fisherwoman. You must have done some real research.
I wasn't until I went to work in St. Cloud, Minnesota with a guy whose brother was a professional fisherman for Bass Pro, as a matter of fact. He was their resident expert. And he had this tricked out bass boat, with 4 live wells and oh gosh, it was beautiful. And he got one for his brother too. And so when his brother said, Joanne, my boss, would you like to go up to Canada fishing? I said, sure, I would love to go. And really, I'd gone fishing with my father, and the only thing he ever really taught me, I hated to put worms on the hook, but the only thing he ever taught me was set the hook. If you get a bite, set the hook. You have to, jerk it up so that it goes into the fish's mouth and they don't just get the bait off and go swim off. And so I knew that, he said, that's the most important thing about fishing. So we went up there and, we caught some little fish. I didn't, but they did. And the professional fisherman's wife didn't catch anything either. So the girls were skunked. And the last day I wanted to go out again. So I asked, could we please go out? It just right here. It was right by the lodge because we had been in an outpost cabin. And it was, could we go out one more time? Because I was enjoying myself. It was beautiful in Canada. And so they said, sure. We went out, and that's when I got my son tells me, I wrote on the back of the picture, 17.5-pound pickerel.
Excellent.
Yes, and they call it a walleye pike, which it isn't really, it's a northern. But because walleyes, actually, I looked it up, are perch. So interesting, which I didn't know before. They belong to the perch family. Weird, huh? Yeah, I know. I mean, why do they call it a walleye pike when it's a northern? I don't know. But anyway, then I got back and we went into the lodge and I said, look, I got this. And the lady and the man who ran the lodge said, oh, where? Where? I thought you were fishing around here. I said, yeah, it was, about a half a football field from the end of your dock there. She said, could we please have that fish and can we have it stuffed and mounted? And I said, I was hoping we could have it for dinner, She said, wait, I got some in the freezer. I got some smaller ones. They're all cleaned. They're all ready. We will give you a bottle of red wine, a bottle of white wine, anything you want to drink. You'll have a full meal and it's all on us. And so my fish is somewhere up there.
I love it. So one of the things I had turned over to discuss is the walleyed martini. So I was going to do that later, but as long as we're talking about the walleyed pike, why don't you describe the walleyed vodka martini? Because it's a fun part of the book.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, if you know the characters, Sally and Dick own the Lake Eden Inn. And Dick has the bar. He runs the bar. Sally runs the kitchen. And Dick decided he would make a walleye drink. He thought walleye martini. So the martini part, the part you actually drink, is made with a little bit of olive juice because it makes the water a little cloudy, like sometimes lakes are. And then the eyes on the fish, supposedly, are two olives facing like that. on the side of the glass, and it's really cute.
Stuffed olives. You left out that part. It's the green olives with the red pimentos. There was like two red eyes looking out at the martini glass.
Yes. And it is delicious. It's also potent. I got to tell you that, and I don't know how to make, I always try to think of a substitute that is not alcoholic. I couldn't think of one. So I didn't do that. I thought, well, they could use Sprite. And I'm thinking, no, it's just not going to be the same.
Sprite and olive sounds really disgusting.
It does. Yeah, it does not sound like something I really want to try in a hurry. But, yeah.
And another key in the book is that they found miniature martini glasses because these are so potent. They didn't want the fishermen knocking them back and then going out in boats on the water in an inebriated state.
Absolutely
and that will play into an issue in the story. But let's go back to the first thing that came along on page 2. And I don't know if this is really true, but Hannah's in the kitchen, in the bakery kitchen, making delicious stuff. And she's asked to summon the tow truck driver, Earl, from the front room because there's a wreck out there. But I love this. Mike, who has now summoned Earl to go, and Carrie, his wife. Now she said, Mike wants to know if Digger's here. When I said he was, Mike said to tell you he needs Digger, too. Hannah shivered. The chill she felt had nothing to do with the temperature of the kitchen. Somebody died? No, Mike just wants Digger to get out there with a hearse to slow down the traffic that's coming from Minneapolis. Now, the reason for this, Joanne can explain, but I don't know if you just made this up or if it's true, but it's a wonderful idea.
It is true. It is totally true. My father had the hearse. He was a funeral director. Maybe that's why I'm so weird, but he was a funeral director, and he could turn it into an ambulance if he wanted to. He just took down the sign that said the name of the funeral home, and took down the little fake rose in a glass that was in the little back of it, and drove it as an ambulance, put the cherry on the top and drove it. And it slowed down the traffic amazingly, especially if he left it as a hearse, which he did. And every year he used to go out on the highway at the opening of fishing season. That's when they asked him to do it. And he'd drive kind of slowly down the highway, and everybody would go, oh my gosh, ooh, there's somebody in there. I never did have to lay it down in the back, but now.
I thought as a traffic slowing device, the hearse was a really great idea. It just never had occurred to me. So with this fishing tournament going up, you can imagine now Digger is out there driving back and forth in the hearse so that people are not having an additionally large pileup. So the next thing I noticed is, we're moving on to page 16, is that you recap Hannah's very unhappy matrimonial experience.
Yes.
Now, if all of you read the earlier books, because this is a spoiler coming very early in this book, if you're first to this book and you haven't read the earlier ones.
My editor's suggestion, that was. And I adore my editor, but I'm like, yeah, but if they've read the series, they already know what happened. He goes, yeah, but how about somebody that starts with this book? And I went, well, okay, but I don't want to give it all away. So I tried very hard not to give it all away. But, it's in there.
Well, but that's
I got a dog here.
One of the themes of the book is whether Hannah is going to be able to trust anybody ever again, or, or live like a nun for the rest of her time. So I thought, it does.
She won't. Yeah, of course she's gonna.
Well, you have a tendency to write around sex rather than write through it, but nonetheless.
I have to.
I know you have to.
Yeah, it's a cozy mystery.
That's
you can't,
right.
It's sort of like a Doris Day movie when there's one foot on the floor all the time. You just got to be careful with that. That and blood and gore, those couple of things. And as my editor, who is, over 65, I think, what he says is, and no naughty words, which I got such a kick out of. Yeah, so, we can't do that either. So they're very clean books. Kids can read them. Grandmas can read them to kids. Grandmas can teach kids how to bake with them, Yeah.
So Hannah is sharing his quarters with Norman. She's in the master bedroom, which she likes because it has a wood-burning fireplace. Norman is sleeping in the guest room. The cat. You want to tell us about the cat? Because the cat's a player in this book.
Oh, well, it's Moisha, of course. Moisha and Norman's cat cuddles. And now I'm not going to spoil it.
Okay.
I'm not going to spoil it. I won't spoil it. But anyway, they are a player in this book.
Definitely so. So Hannah also has to decide whether she wants to go back to her own condo, whether she's going to stay with Norman, whatever.
Yeah, Dolores and Doc have had the condo totally redecorated. But she's afraid that she can't, that Moisha won't want to go. So we don't resolve that in this book.
We don't. So there is a pastry chef emergency in the book. The people who have the inn, which is benefiting from the walleye fishing tournament, are about sold out. And their normal pastry chef has an emergency medical problem in his family, not him, but his mother. So he has to leave. So that is the pretext upon which we get Hannah to stay at the inn. She gets a room, Norman gets a room, and she's going to stay there for the duration of the tournament and make caramel pecan rolls, among other things. You know, I can hardly believe how many of these some people can eat. I mean, there's a guy in there, he's had like 6 before breakfast and he wants, another. How do people eat that many seriously fattening things and still function?
Well, everybody goes on a diet right before it's time to put on the bathing suit. I mean, you have to. And now it's during the winter, there's not all that much. I mean, unless you're very athletic and you're going skiing and you're going cross-country skiing, which burns up a lot of calories, unless you're doing things like that, you do tend to gain weight. They call it winter weight, as a matter of fact, where I grew up, little town where I grew up. And then it comes time to try to get into your swimming suit. And if you can't do it, then either you buy a larger size or you go on a diet. So
I think your books are designed to sabotage anybody's attempt to wear a swimming suit. I don't care if you're male or female.
That and drinking coffee.
Well, I was going to say, we've been watching something on MHC TV, which I love. It's foreign television, mostly crime. And this one's set in Sweden on an island near Stockholm. It's called the Sandhem Murders. They drink coffee. I mean, it's like water. And I think these people are all on such a caffeine high all the time. No wonder they're killing each other.
Yeah.
But I also, in this book, every time I turn around, everybody is, seriously.
Yeah, well, coffee is called Swedish plasma.
Exactly.
Yes. It's very, they drink a lot of it. And a lot of people in this little town, are in Lake Eden are Swedish or Norwegian or, so they drink a lot of coffee. Yes. Keeps them warm.
It does. When they're not drinking martinis, they're swilling coffee. So all works out.
Wonderful combination, don't you think?
It really is. So Wally is, as you portray him, it calls to mind like Dick's Sporting Goods. Wally is a guy who, from a very small beginning, has risen to have a kind of empire of sporting goods, particularly fishing stuff. And so he's the one that's sponsoring this fishing tournament on Lake Eden, that the Lake Eden Inn is overbooked and all. And I think Wally's a really interesting guy. Did you, in fact, model him on somebody like Dick? If there is a Dick, I don't know whether there's really a Dick.
No, there is no real Wally or anybody. I mean, maybe there is, but I've never met anybody who, built up a sporting goods shop like that from scratch. I don't know. But it's possible. It's possible to do. So, no, I like the character. I like the character a lot,
Well, I liked him too, and he has to have a reason for sponsoring the fishing tournament, or the fishing tournament has to have a reason for coming into being.
Oh, yeah.
Which would be this idea that Wally has. So, excuse me, it all makes sense. But as a result, they've hired a professional fishing guide, right?
Yes.
Did you model him on anybody in particular, or is he another person you made
and
up?
I'm scared to death that my former boss will read the book. No, really, I didn't know. I didn't model anything on his brother or him. but I'm thinking later, maybe I shouldn't mention this if I talk to them, which I don't do very often. But yeah, no, I didn't model it after. I just like the character. And sometimes you just like a character. I may have to bring him back. Might have to.
So we need a celebrity. We need him to be kind of obnoxious. You can sort of see where this is going. But he has a real drinking problem. And so actually addiction and alcoholism is the theme in this book. Some of us, it's carbohydrates, some of it's caffeine. Those are legit, right? But, and so to be a functional alcoholic is something that you obviously did some thinking about because
I did. I had, well, the fishing expert that I knew and my boss, neither one were alcoholics. So, you know, I have known a couple alcoholics, and yeah, it's a disease. You bet it is. And it is very hard to cure. And if you don't follow the guidelines, like go to AA or anything like that, you can slip off the wagon, you know. And I knew that. I knew all of that because I had to study it for the book. I study things with these books every once in a while. And yeah, I look up things because I do not want to be that inaccurate. I can make up things, but I don't want to tell people something that's not true. The only thing I have so much trouble with, thinking of names of medicine, like pharmacology. Everybody's got weird names for medicine now, and no matter what you come up with, even if it's ridiculous, there's probably something out there by that name, which is really scary. So you know, if I'm talking about poison or anything like that, I can't really name it. I have to be very, very careful. You know, I don't want anybody patterning anything after something I've written.
Well, you have to be careful in the recipes too. Those of you who come to see Joanne over the years know that we've talked about how important it is that the recipes be accurate.
Oh, yes.
And the instructions, I mean, I love the one where you actually went so far as to say, set the can down on the counter. And I thought, maybe you're taking this too far. There's a certain infantile, you know, infantilism going on here. But nonetheless, it really is important. I've told you all before that the worst liability, or the highest liability issue for publishers is always recipes. It's always recipes because it's so easy for people to go wrong.
This is true. It is.
Right. So you go to extraordinary lengths. One thing I really like about the way Joanne's books are laid out is that you read a bit and then the relevant recipes, the ones that have sort of come into play, are right there. And, you know, it can occupy several pages sometimes with all of the instructions and notes. So they're not all just in a thing at the back of the book, you know, where you read through the story and then you have to thumb around and find them all.
Your only problem with this is it's like the chicken and the egg. Should I bake first and then start reading, or should I read first and then start baking? You know, it's and people do it different ways.
And it's important to make coffee before you start because if you
weren't
thinking about it, you would.
Yes.
So I have one other thing I should have brought up when we were talking about walleyes, but I'm just following through this. Walleyes, it turns out, according to Joanne in this book, have photosensitive eyes. They like shadows when it's bright daylight, so in daytime they prefer water with plant cover or overhanging limbs that, you know, basically are camouflage for predators. And yet they still get enough light so they can identify prey. And I thought, you know, nature has adapted so many species to different things. There was a big article I'm trying to remember, it might have been the New York Times Magazine a week or so ago. And one of them was about a study where they found a few people who have different ocular receptors than most of us. So while most of us see the same way, there are people who actually see more colors, different colors and all, because they have, it's a genetic thing and it's only women. It's tied to the Y chromosome, no, the X chromosome, right? So if any of you see David Attenborough's series on TV where he went in and tried to show us using cameras and filters and all how some species see the world, it's amazing. I mean, how, it's like dogs can smell hundreds of times more than we can, but eyes work that way too. And, it makes sense that a fish that's living in fresh water that can be prey, but also needs to feed, would have light-sensitive eyes to help him with all of those. So is that something you picked up, or is that something you studied again?
Oh, I do study with these books. Yeah, it's.
Well, you studied it with all this interesting information, so I thought you'd done a lot of work.
I did. I did study it. I looked up a lot of things, and it was interesting. And I tried to put some of it in there. And I got some of it in there, and I left some out because I could always write about something like this again,
So we set the stage for you. I don't think we should tell them who the victim is, because that's sort of a spoiler.
Oh, heavens no.
But anyway, somebody's murdered. Oh, surprise. And, and then it all sort of goes from there. So we can't really talk. I mean, I don't think there's much else we can tell you about how the story goes. So
we have to be a little careful. We can mention, there's one recipe in there you're going to love.
That's what I was going to say. Let's talk about food.
Okay. I love to talk about food. No, there's one recipe, and a lady sent me the recipe for baked Scotch eggs.
Oh, yeah. No, I read that one.
Yeah, and most of the time they are deep fried. But I did not want anybody young to work with hot oil, or a deep fryer. And I made an exception to that once, and I'm kind of sorry I did. But no, I don't want that. That's why I don't write about fried donuts and things like that. Because sometimes I had a little girl who was 8 years old, whose mother did not bake, and whose mother worked, and she was a latchkey kid. She came home from school and let herself in the house, and she was reading the books, the Hannah books, and she decided that she would bake cookies for her mother, and she did. She baked them all by herself. There was nobody else in the house. And I thought, that's one of the reasons I do so many steps in the recipes, as I think it's lovely that kids could learn how to bake from reading these books, I really enjoyed that.
Well, Scotch eggs, I learned a really useful thing. I mean, I've actually had Scotch eggs in bars, but Joanne's tip is that you should hard boil the eggs and then chill them. Because they're a lot easier to work with if they're cold.
Oh, yes, they are.
You're going to roll them up in the ground sausage meat, and then, the breadcrumbs and everything, and bake them.
I love Scotch eggs. I really do. They're so pretty when you cut them in half.
Well, they are. But I thought that was a really useful tip, was to chill the eggs. So we have things like double pineapple cookies, pineapple frosting drizzle, hot fudge and vanilla bar cookies, chocolate fruit and nut cupcakes.
Oh, those are good.
They sound really good.
Fudge frosting. Oh.
Chocolate fudge frosting. God, that sounds really
My
lethal.
grandmother used to say that there were 4 food groups, which we know isn't true, but grandmothers never lie. 4. Yes. Cakes, pies, cookies, and fudge. That's what she said.
Good for her. Yeah. I have to say that I consider potato chip and cranberry cookies sort of suspect. Are they good?
Sounds really good.
Well, there we are. We all have different taste receptors too, don't we?
Yeah.
I know. I love it. Now, butter is very heavily figured into all of these. So I can give you a tip from my husband, because if you're lactose intolerant, which can happen to you, you can actually make clarified butter, what the Indians call ghee, and you can use it just as though you were using regular butter.
Just melt butter and
you can buy it
remove
at
the
Costco.
solids. Yeah.
Sorry, my husband, I don't know who that is, probably the Mayo Clinic telling me something. Shoot, I don't even know how to turn it off. There we go. All right, off, go away.
That is the easiest way I've ever seen anybody turn off a husband. Don't you think?
Who knows? I'm pretty sure it was the Mayo Clinic. Oh, come on, it just turns you off.
Well, it didn't work, did it, guys?
I'm going to turn my phone off. There we go. try that now. Teach you. Sorry.
Mine might ring too, who knows?
I didn't even, I had it on because I was taking photos and I forgot. Anyway, it turns out, as I said, that you can, I don't know though, that you can you really bake as well with clarified butter as you can with sticks of butter? I have some trouble envisioning that.
The biggest problem would be if you need a solid butter component.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, for frying, it's better, right?
Oh yeah, for frying it's fine, but I'm trying to envision if you're, doing the butter sugar.
Solidify. You make clarified butter, then let it solidify in the fridge.
Yeah, I guess you could do that, or you could buy it at Costco currently. But
My father had a cholesterol problem later in his life, and his favorite thing in the whole world was my mother's molasses cookies. And he said he wanted molasses cookies, but she would have to make them with margarine. Okay, now margarine in Minnesota back when was not
white.
Colored.
that's right. It was
It
huge
was
fight.
white, and it looked gross, and there was a color capsule in there. And what you did is you put it in the bag that they gave you, and then you broke the capsule inside the bag, and then you mixed it all up. Oh, it was so awful. She tried making the molasses cookies with it, and they were dreadful. They were hard as rocks. And no, my dad didn't like those. He said, why don't you try half and half? So she tried half and half. And that was a little better, but he said, I tell you what, Esther, I've got it figured out. You make them the regular way, and I'll only eat half of what I usually do. That's what they did.
Do you know that was an actual giant war? I grew up north of Chicago, right below the Wisconsin line. And I'm telling you, I'm trying to remember a lawsuit. The Wisconsin dairy farmers were adamant about letting margarine be sold colored.
That's right.
When it was white and it had this nasty little orange, package that you did stuff with, people knew it wasn't real butter.
It never looked like real butter when you mixed in that packet.
No, and it didn't taste like real butter either. But I mean, it's, we're so used to, time moves on, right? And now
I think we had to go, I'm from Kenosha, we had to go into Illinois to buy.
you might have had to.
Yeah, you did, because it was illegal in Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not at all. I remember.
Minnesota
I was just
too.
a kid when all that happened. But it was one of the other huge battles that went on was daylight savings time, because as you imagine, the dairy farmers and all, they didn't want to, change hours for cows.
Yeah.
And I keep hoping that we'll either go on it full time or we'll give it up, because it is a nightmare for me because of the Zoom events. And we're like the lady from Iceland, what time is it there? But because we're on Mountain Standard Time all year round, most of the time, practically speaking, I have to schedule things as though we were on Pacific Daylight Time, because, we are, practically speaking. And nobody can get that. And as daylight is taken over and regular time is shrunk now, it's like November to March. What happened to, it used to be 6 months. It just is a constant nightmare. So
It is.
I
Nobody
wish
knows what time it is,
anywhere. I know. It's just my proudest achievement was actually scheduling an event for two authors and me, one of whom lived in Dublin, so that was 10 at night for her.
Oh, good heavens.
I'm at 2:00 in the afternoon in Scottsdale, and the other author is in Perth, Australia, where it's 9:00 the next morning. And I was actually able to get everybody to the same Zoom event, given this. I know, but to do that, you just have to constantly try to figure out time things. So I'm kind of hoping that we'll.
It would be nice if we could standardize some things. Yes.
Indeed it would.
That
So
would be
what
nice.
other recipes? I like your butterscotch sauce because it's recommended heavily for pancakes, waffles, and French toast.
Yes.
So the maple syrup contingent may sue Joanne here.
Yeah. I like that butterscotch sauce too. I also like, I don't know if it's in this one, lemon curd. Is that in there?
Yes, you've got lemon curd
I
in
love
here.
lemon curd.
You do.
Mm-hmm.
My husband makes lemon curd to die for. Oh my God, it's
My
so
son
good.
makes lemon curd. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Yeah.
Wonderful stuff. and limoncello. If you ever want, he makes limoncello that is absolutely fabulous.
Really?
I can always get a table at Virtue because I give the staff limoncello every once in a while. I know, it's so wonderful. And you've got blueberry coffee cake. Do you know, I learned to make that in high school. We had to take home economics in high school. Remember, they taught
did
you real
too.
life skills so that when you got out, you could actually, do things. And one of the things I've always remembered was the blueberry coffee cake that we made for faculty teas. Since we had to bake it and we had to serve it, so we knew how to do stuff.
God, we had tuna casserole. We had to make a lot of that and cornbread. Yeah.
Remember the French green beans with the mushroom soup and the onions on the top?
course.
These are all classics, right? From back
Yeah.
in the day, right?
They are. They
So
are classic.
anything else you'd like to say, and then we'll take questions.
About the book? No, I'm afraid I'll give something away.
Oh, we don't want to do that. So questions. Anybody like to ask Joanne questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you keep like a big marker board of your characters and what's happening as they move through from book to book so that you can remember for the next one? Or
Nope.
how do you keep track of the trajectory of each character?
I have, I'll let you in on my secret. What I do is on the Facebook page, I got a gal that will write things on the Facebook page for me. Okay, and I always say, would you please ask her, now, what kind of car does Hannah drive now? Or, or how many kids does Rose have? Or things like that. And who can answer them are you guys. You guys can answer stuff like that. And I'm always so grateful. Because if I kept a big marker board and all sorts of stuff like that, I would not get the books written. I'd just be writing. In the movies or in TV, they call it the Bible. Mm-hmm. You write the Bible of all the characters and the trajectory of their lives and all that. Half the time, I don't know where these guys are going in my book. I don't know. The only thing I know is if I have a character and I try to make that character do something that is not in character for that character, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It doesn't ring true. And it's kind of an internal ear on that. You listen to that and you go, oh no, Hannah would never do that. Or, oh no, Mike would never do that. Or, yeah, it works. It works. These people that do what happens to this character then with every book, I don't know how they can write. There's no time. I don't know.
Everybody works differently. So there we are. Yes, sir.
How disciplined are you when you write? Do you write every day? Do you write a specific time of day? Do you write
Yes.
a number of hours a day?
Yes. Well, no, I write a number of pages a day. I try to get a certain number of things done in the day. And I start early, very early before the telephone solicitors start calling my number, and no, I don't want to sell my house or whatever. Yeah. Sometimes it's worse. No, you probably get calls too. But no, I start early. Like I will get up at 4 and get thoroughly caffeinated because I do drink a lot of coffee. And then I'll go in and sit down and start writing. And before I tried to write 10 pages a day. That now is a bit much for me because my eyes are not good. So I have reduced that to 5 pages a day. If I do that, I will finish the books, So that's my writing schedule. That's what I do.
Do you work on the computer?
Hang on a minute. I need to repeat a question for the camera because it's not always possible to hear. The first question was, does Joanne keep some kind of a character Bible? And her answer was no. And the second question was, how disciplined is she in her writing process? And you just heard her say that she has reduced it from 10 pages a day to 5, but she stays with it, and 5 pages a day adds up to a book before terribly long. Now, I'm sorry, what was your question?
I just asked, do you type on a computer when you're creating your book?
Does Joanne use a computer?
Usually I do, yes. I mean, almost always. Unless, of course, I'm somewhere and I get this brainstorm. And then I always carry a notebook with me. I've got one now in my bag. I've got a notebook with me. And if I have to, I'll write it down. Sometimes I can't read my own writing, but then thank goodness for Trudy, my friend Trudy, and my son, John, because they can usually read what I've written or figure it out. You know, if they could figure out one word in a sentence, I probably know what it was. But gosh, I have terrible handwriting now.
Anyone else? Yes.
Who is Hannah based on?
Who is Hannah based on?
Huh?
Who is Hannah based on? Is there a real person?
Oh, no. Well, yes and no. There are a lot of real people that Hannah is based on. I tried to imagine, and I have several best friends. I tried to imagine, I took the good qualities that I loved about my friends and tried to put them together in one person. And that's what Hannah is based on. She's got her faults. She's got, foibles. Hannah's got them, but she's still just so nice, And all my friends bake, so I get stuff, which is nice, And I test all the recipes. So, and then my son's girlfriend, tests the Do any of you know Kathy? Good. No.
I've mentioned her before.
Yeah. Kathy, as John puts it, Kathy cannot boil water. So, if Kathy can make one of my recipes work, anybody can. And that's why I use Kathy. Now, she's getting better at it. And I'm getting worried. I'm going to have to find a new Kathy here. Yeah.
What about the cat? Is the cat based on a pet that you've had, or is this just an imaginary cat?
No, cat is based on a cat that I had. But the cat I had was a female tabby cat, and her boyfriend was Moisha. He used to, I was a good, responsible pet owner. I had, her name was Billy, because all we got in our house at that point was Bills. So Billy, I got her spayed and everything. So no little kittens that were unwanted happened, except for the first time. Yeah, before I could get her spayed. But that Moisha was her boyfriend, and he used to come over and yowl for her to come out of the house. And she would go out, and they would romp around, and then the inevitable happened. And I called my vet, and I said, Billy is, I took pictures. Are you sure? Are you positive you spayed her? And he said, Joanne, your cat has no uterus. So I figured I was safe. And yeah, I was. No, that first litter, when she arrived on my doorstep, when Billy did, oh, she was so pregnant. She had her babies in my front steps. So I put a box out there and everything. And then I got nervous because I thought, coyotes come down. We've got a couple of wildcats. We got, I live in the hills. So there are predators. So I moved her to the garage, nice little bed and everything in there. And she was happy there. And then and I managed to give away every single one of the little kittens when they were old enough to go. And so it was a happy thing. Billy was a happy cat until she died. Billy is, and in a way, Moisha's based on her because Billy weighed 23 pounds. Big cat. And I also had 3 dogs at the time. And she got every single one of them across the nose. She was the boss, let me tell you.
She was probably eating caramel pecan rolls in the kitchen while you were paying attention.
That could be.
It could be.
Yeah, too bad. She should have had more coffee.
I did see a hand. Yes.
I'm pretty sure I
read all your books, but I'm curious what number this is. Maybe I have it just in case. Tell me how many you've written.
You know what? They're numbering them differently, and I don't know. I think
Yeah.
I thought this was 28.
Well, I
but-
can count. There's actually a list in the front of the book.
Yeah,
so
there is a
you could
list.
do the math there.
But
Cookbooks as one.
Well, that's a good question.
it
Up to
does
the-
have a story of a sort. I don't know if you see. I don't know if you do that. Also, I wrote 3 that are 3. They were stories. They were what do you call them?
It looks like book 30, but
Oh, really?
yeah.
Hey.
Not including your other series or the cookbook.
Oh.
But there is an answer for this, so I'll look it up
Ooh, I did it.
here. Yeah. good for
Hey,
you.
I wrote more than Sue Grafton. Oh my gosh. Oh no.
Sadly.
Mm.
Anyone else have a question? No? Yes.
Well, perhaps I've missed this because I tend to read your books quickly because I want to see what happens. But I noticed in the last book, the triple chocolate cheesecake,
Uh-huh.
that Andrea was not working as a realtor any longer. At least she wasn't in that story. Is she still in real estate?
Yes, she is, and believe me, things will happen with the real estate.
Okay. 'Cause
Yeah,
she was
it's
right up there with Hannah the whole time.
yeah. Well, she is learning how to bake. She is learning some stuff from Hannah, and Andrea is definitely culinarily challenged, we could say, and so but she's learning. She's learning. And Hannah is teaching her. Hannah said, "Oh, nobody can do that," but she's doing it. So we'll see what happens with Andrea, and definitely she's still in real estate.
Okay.
Yeah, good venue for a murder. Yeah.
And actually, with all these people relocating to more rural settings during COVID and so forth, maybe Lake Eden will experience a small population growth. Scottsdale is out of control as far as I can work out looking at the traffic, but there are a lot of small communities that have grown surprisingly large during all this time. So something else you could
Anything
write
can
about.
happen.
You're right. I couldn't figure out how to search our own website. So I will look up the answer to which book this is and let you know. So thank you all very much for coming. Let's give Joanne a round of applause. It's been so great. to
Thank
have
you.
her.
Thank you.
So
And I'll give you one.
what we're going to do is you should have gotten a number with your book. So I'm going to ask you if you'll fold up your chairs and lean them against some convenient surface. And then, Joanne, do you want to sign here or do you want to move to the little table?
I would like to move to the little table.
All right,
I
so
think.
just let me clear the furniture and then if you can line